Losing millions of dollars hurts the soul, especially when it happens just because you wanted to clean out some space in your desk. That's what exactly happened to James Howell. He accidentally threw away his hard drive that has hundreds of millions worth of Bitcoin. Many crypto experts consider Bitcoin as more than a digital peer of gold, calling it a replacement for the fiat currency. Howell is one of those experts. He's a libertarian who firmly believes in a decentralized money system. Howell was in on Bitcoin from the beginning. You know, when the rest of us said it was stupid, Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency, was invented by a mysterious individual known as Satoshi Nakamoto. No one is sure if Nakamoto is the pseudonym for a team of designers or one brilliant individual. Still, in 2008, the Bitcoin network was created and thrown to the wolves. Literally. Nakamoto, whoever he, she, or they may be, never intended on controlling Bitcoin. Instead, the users control the network. Nakamoto designed Bitcoin for complete decentralization. In other words, no one individual, no matter how smart, can control Bitcoin. Not even Nakamoto. That's what drew Howell to Bitcoin, the freedom, and the fact that the government can't inflate or deflate the currency, or fiat currency as crypto enthusiasts call it, like they can the US dollar or the British pound. Howell believes the people should dictate currency's value, not the government. Howell's belief led to mining Bitcoin as a hobby. Mining, to put it simply, is how you get Bitcoin. Put another way, Howell's computer was writing code in exchange for Bitcoin. However, the overall goal for Howell was generating more Bitcoin and helping the network circulate more decentralized currency. Soon, it became a full-time hobby. In 2008 and 2009, Bitcoin was worth less than a few bucks. Since then, its value has skyrocketed up to $50,000 per coin. In the late 2000s, Howell says no one knew if Bitcoin's price would go up. And when his wife Hafina complained about the loud computer noises, Howell decided mining wasn't worth the hassle. Mining Bitcoin cost him about 10 pounds of electricity per coin back then. Howell mainly mined for fun, but the cost and his wife's complaints made him realize mining was impractical for a middle-class family man. Howell is an engineer who, at the time, helped maintain emergency response systems throughout Wales. At night, though, when he got off, Howell was mining Bitcoin. He started around 2008 when he was just the fifth miner to join the network. Because he was among the first miners, Howell harvested thousands of Bitcoin. The currency is similar to any other commodity. The more Bitcoin you buy, the more valuable it becomes. Howell had 3 kids to take care of, so he shut down his mining operation and spent more time with his kids. Howell helped turn their room into a Minecraft replica using the carpentry skills he picked up from his dad. The universe regarded Howell's fatherly kindness by spilling a glass of lemonade on his computers, including the one he used for Bitcoin mining. Howell wasn't too upset. He removed the hard drives, which luckily survived the citrus tsunami. Howell transferred all essential data on the hard drive to another computer, except for his Bitcoin. Howell says he didn't think his Bitcoin were that essential at the time and wanted to use his other computer's space for practical tools, like email. And so he says the hard drive sat there on his desk, the Bitcoin inside growing in value every month. Over the next few years, Howell got caught up in life. He raised his kids, worked his job, and continued fiddling with new technologies. Meanwhile, his Bitcoin holdings grew to over $1 million. The year was 2013. Bitcoin took off as people like Howell invested in the currency. Some were looking for a fortune, while others were like Howell, government skeptics looking to get their money out of fiat currencies. Howell was aware of Bitcoin's rise, but didn't want to cash in just yet. He wanted them to grow before selling them or using the currency to buy anything. One day, Howell decided his desk needed cleaning. He got out his wastebasket, cleared off some clutter, and threw away some computer parts he'd stuffed inside the desk drawers, including the hard drive containing his Bitcoin. Howell saved 2 different hard drives, an empty backup, and the drive with all his Bitcoin. He thought he could tell them apart, but threw away the Bitcoin drive by mistake. That same week, Howell asked his wife if she could take out the trash while he was out of town with some friends. Howell recalls Hafina answering with heck no, and asked why he couldn't do it himself since trash was his job. He brushed it off and decided he'd take out the trash when he got home. Despite the fun nature of the trip, Howell recalls feeling not quite himself while partying with his friends, who corroborated Howell's later statements. They remembered how Howell seemed distracted and distant throughout the raucous trip. Howell didn't realize what was bugging him until he got home. He wanted to make sure he'd thrown away the correct drive. Howell expected the drive to be in the trash bin where he'd left it, except the bag was gone. He asked Hafina if she'd taken the trash out while he was gone. She said yes, she had. Howell recalls cursing out loud. Upon examining the other hard drive, he soon discovered that it was empty, and his Bitcoin were somewhere at the dump by now. Howell hopped in his car and sped towards the dump in Newport. He remembers hoping that he could find the hard drive lying around in the landfill. Surely, it couldn't be that difficult. However, when Howell arrived at the dump, he saw a sea of trash and grass mounds piled high with layers of garbage, dating back to who knows when. Like an infinite trash lasagna. He realized that his $1.4 million hard drive was already buried under a new layer of garbage. He went back home realizing he'd need an excavator to dig the hard drive out of the dump, especially by the time he obtained an excavator. Howell only hoped that his Bitcoin didn't shoot any higher. Otherwise, he'd lose a precious investment. All because he decided it was time to clean his desk. His hopes shattered before his eyes in 2013 when Bitcoin became mainstream. The former crypto miner used a Bitcoin value calculator to track the growth of his submerged fortune. Howell knew he owned around 8,000 Bitcoin. He saw Bitcoin rise to $377 in late 2014. Then it hit $400 in 2014. Remember, Howell had earned his Bitcoin back in 2008 when it was still under $1. In 2016, Bitcoin rose to over $900. By 2018, however, Bitcoin skyrocketed to $13,000, making Howell's fortune $100 million that year. You might be asking, why couldn't Howell log into his Bitcoin account and retrieve his coins there? Well, cryptocurrency and in turn Bitcoin doesn't work that way. It isn't like having a bank account. Banks were the primary reason Nakamoto invented Bitcoin. Nakamoto saw the Lehman Brothers and other multi-billion financial conglomerates' devastating effect on the common folk. He saw how the banks and governments played games with their money and often lost it. So he made Bitcoin different from banks. One of those differences involved how a Bitcoin owner accesses their coins. Whether bought or mined, each coin is born with a private key. This key is always 64 characters long and encrypted into your Bitcoin. If you lose the private key or forget to write it down, you can't access your Bitcoin. There's no password reset option with Bitcoin. In other words, Howell had to get that hard drive. Before Howell could rent an excavator and hire a crew, he had to get permission from the dump, which is owned and operated by the city of Newport. At first, Howell was afraid to tell the dump managers that he had thrown away his Bitcoin. He didn't want to ask someone if they'd let him find his magic internet money he'd thrown away by accident. So, for those reasons, Howell waited a month, and his Bitcoin shot up to $6 million. It was time to ask his wife for some advice. Hafina, with the same harshness she used when he asked her to take out the trash, said he needed to go down to the dump ASAP. He talked with one of the managers who gave him some good news and some bad news. The good news was that the dump might know his Bitcoin's location. The bad news was that the search might require moving around layers of trash and shredding grass trash mounds. The dump had been putting grass over the trash for some time now, making it likely that Howell's drive was under artificial earth. He was optimistic when he presented his case to the city. After all, there was a lot of money under all that garbage, especially for a small town in Wales. However, city officials, contrary to Howell's assumptions, said no. The city told Howell he couldn't excavate the dump for one primary reason. They don't think it's worth tearing the dump apart for a hard drive that may or may not be there. The excavation might also cause environmental issues. They argued that Howell's hard drive was probably broken beyond repair and thus pointless to retrieve. Howell decided that he'd conduct his own research and found that most of their claims weren't true. He asked hard drive engineering experts what the survival odds were. They said that given the type of drive and the trash bag it was in, there was an 80% chance Howell's Bitcoin were still salvageable. Nevertheless, the Newport officials declined his proposal again, this time over a Zoom interview. They cited the same reasons and ignored any evidence Howell presented to them. Newport City even said no when Howell revealed his Bitcoin was worth over $100 million. Despite the no's, Howell tried relentlessly to find solutions. Meanwhile, his home life was getting away from him. Hafina, in later interviews, says she didn't leave Howell because he was obsessed with finding his Bitcoin. There were other, more personal reasons. Hafina also took their 3 kids with her when she left. Howell says he doesn't get to see them often, partly because of his dedication to finding his Bitcoin. His commitment also cost Howell his job. After a year of searching, he lost the motivation to work. He's been unemployed ever since. Howell's PowerPoint plan involves excavating a 250 square meter area of the dump. The project will cost around $6 million, but Howell says the funding won't be a problem. The real problem is getting permission. Nevertheless, Howell remains optimistic despite getting only no's for 8 years straight. He hopes that as crypto becomes more and more mainstream, the city council will finally understand its significance and how valuable his lost fortune truly is. As of April 2022, Howell's lost fortune is around $344 million, well above Newport's local GDP. And according to most experts, Bitcoin can only go up year by year. Howell has offered the city a cut of his Bitcoin fortune, wondering how long they can say no to such an offer. At this point, Howell's future is tied up in getting his Bitcoin back. His family doesn't see him much anymore, and his engineering career is headed down the toilet. And even though he's tried everything, Howell refuses to quit. Click to watch one of these next videos, and let us know in the comments section how long you'd dig for that Bitcoin if you were in James's shoes.